Why is it, one might ask, that so many people say that they love Romsey so much? And why would they choose to live here? What could be so special that you don't find in any similar sized town, detected by our visitors and tourists alike? I think that the answer must be in the warmth of its community spirit, something of its links with history, and a sense of identity, almost like village life. Romsonians are generally friendly and supportive people, proud of their town as it is, without enormous changes or developments which could change its whole character. As I have my home and business here in Romsey town, I am privileged to experience firsthand how some of the townsfolk, businesses and voluntary organisations can work together to make such a happy social environment. As the following film unfolds, throughout the seasons you will see various of the personalities and events that have taken place during a whole year in the life of Romsey. No way can it cover every incident, every notable personality, or every aspect of life here. But I hope you will enjoy a taste of my own pleasure in preparing a vision of Romsey. On an early January morning, Romsey town is shrouded in mist, and we can just make out the figure of the early morning post lady as she enters the marketplace. The statue of Lord Palmerston is barely visible, and our first visitors begin to arrive. A central landmark for our town of Romsey must surely be Romsey Abbey. People have worshipped here on this site for well over 1,000 years. And in this building, for 850 of them, its ancient history has seen many changes. From the founding of the abbey by King Edward the Elder, through 600 years as the home of a community of Benedictine nuns, and through the closure of the convent in 1539, and the purchase of the church in 1544 by the townspeople for what seems a mere £100. Most of the church was built in the Norman style with round arches, and of course today it sees many activities. Concerts and exhibitions are staged here, particularly during the Arts Festival, normally held every 3 years. There are sometimes 3 and maybe 4 weddings on a very busy day. As this film unfolds throughout the seasons, we shall meet some of the people who live here in Romsey and some of the events which take place. At this time of year, there is very little colour apart from the obvious daffodils, the snowdrops and crocuses to brighten our gardens. So let's wander down along the meads towards the Memorial Park and Sadler's Mill, or the Salmon Leap as some of us call it, and enter the town along Middlebridge Street. This Japanese field gun was presented to the town by Lord Mountbatten of Burma after the Second World War. At this time of the year, there is little life from the bowling club, but later we shall see them in action. From the bypass we enter Middlebridge Street and some of its lovely old buildings. The Star Inn is one of many pubs around Romsey, and one of the reconditioned buildings from the old Whitbread brewery site, together with the Abbey Hotel, where many clubs and groups meet. Here's Di, landlady of the Abbey Hotel, together with Vin.
Is it a happy bunch?
Now, now there's a man who enjoys his beer. The Tudor Rose is said to have been the original Guildhall of the town. Romsey has always been known for its many pubs, and in 1911 some of the first pubs and wine bars were opened, and at that time maybe there was one for every 141 people living in Romsey. This was twice the national average. In the 30s there were perhaps only about 28 of these pubs, and today only 9 still exist. It's late spring to early summer, and there's a lot more colour to be seen in the garden. There is La Sagesse Convent School and St Joseph's Church, which were opened in 1890 when the Catholics returned to Romsey. And then across the road to the south entrance of Romsey Abbey. And now enter Mr Don Baker. Hello, Don.
Hello there. Nice to see you. I'm getting on with a bit of blacksmithing. Right, now, over here you see a pressure cooker in the sink. Now that's a 1930 pressure cooker. And when they had that, they thought they were right up to date. No doubt you've seen a modern one. That's an 1851. Now, that's in cast iron, of course. Now they, again, thought they were right up to date when they had that in 1850, when in fact it was invented in 1680. In 1850. Now, this two-seater toilet came in very handy in the old days when food was very easily contaminated. Perhaps the whole family would have tongue trouble at once. My friends at nursing actually had a four-seater. It wasn't a social event, it was a necessary part of the daily equipment.
Into the blacksmith shop.
Here we are. Okay, now at the end you see the blacksmith's forge, and on the right of that is the bellows. I've known this since I was very young. That's probably 70 years ago, when I go to Percy Townsend's blacksmith shop, taking the horse up, he would lift me off and he would shoe the horse. Never dreaming that I would one day have this in my museum. In the 1920s there was a gentleman known as Pincher Jack. He would come up from Wales. He was an itinerant blacksmith. The old blacksmith here probably would save these rasps because they're extremely good still, and Pincher Jack would make these pinchers out of the rasps. And if you look at them very closely, you can see the remains of the old rasps still on the metal. That was just during the 1920s. This piece of timber here was the result of Dutch elm disease. They were cutting the trees down on the Mountbatten estate, and I asked the woodman there to cut me off a slice. Years later, when Lady Romsey came here, she asked me where I got the piece of wood. I had to admit that I'd got it off her estate, possibly without her permission, only the woodman's. She saw a little duck that I'd carved, took a liking to it, and I said, right, you have that, and we'll forget about the piece of timber that I had off your estate. In fact, it's the insignia of office of the Corporal of Horse in the Army. It was used extensively in the old days for killing animals. This tube on the end is hollow, and the pole being the forehead, that's where they hit the animal. This was for cutting the hooves off. Now, in the army, the corporal of horse would go round after the battle, and any animals that were too badly injured to give attention to, they would dispatch with this poleaxe. The Dutch, of course, were noted for their wood carving, and during the 18th century, and only during the 18th century, they made their own particular tools. Thus, the apprentice would make his tools, so that when he went for a job, it was as good as a reference. He could show the tools he'd made, and, as I said, much better than a reference. But we can't get through life without encountering weights and measures at least twice in our lifetime. The first one, of course, being the baby scale, when you're weighed, and then, of course, the last one is when you're measured to go into the box. These are avoirdupois. These are avoirdupois weights. Now, in Elizabeth I's time, there was at least 5 different weights, and Elizabeth said that we ought to standardise, and we've been all this time, at last we've gone into metric, the base of 10, dead easy, and the first lot were all founded on the grain of wheat. That 1 pound is equivalent to 7,000 grains of wheat. Yes, that's a troy pan, little cup weights, and they all fit in a big cup which weighs 1 pound. All our weights originally came from the Romans, and also our measurement. Prior to the Romans, we had rule of thumb, that is hand and span and pace, and that is how we used to measure. Now, the only thing which still exists, in the modern textbooks, they mention that 3 barley corns make an inch, and there we have 3 barley corns. That's the barley. Now, Romsey, of course, in the old days was a woolen town. Wool played a great part in the life of the Romsey people. And in Romsey, we have a public house called the Bishop Blaise. Now, Bishop Blaise was the patron saint of wool combers. He invented the wool comb, photograph of it there, and he was put to death by the workmen for inventing the comb, because it obviously put a lot of people out of work. But he was eventually made a saint, and is now the patron saint of wool combers.
Carve this,
yes,
have you done?
I'm going to carve this, and I've got a few other jobs to do at the same time, of course, but it will eventually be carved, because I feel that he played a big part in the history of Romsey. In the days when they had horse-drawn mowers, the horses, of course, if they had their ordinary shoes on, would make marks, so they put these boots over the horseshoes and to make marks on the lawn.
That's leather, is it?
That's made of leather. Yeah. Yes, this is a little bit of my work. A table I made some years ago for the agricultural shows where I usually exhibit. I had to get a reserve champion with it. Fire screen I made for my daughter. I've just had it in to give it a dust off. I'm just making weather vane for an old friend of mine. It's his birthday today. He's 80 today, so I've made this weather vane. I'm just painting it at the moment.
Hello.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry, what's that?
It is really good down like it might rain, but no, I'd be really pleased with it, but much better than the other one.
Yeah.
Ron, you're very well known in this area, aren't you?
I am, yes.
Yeah. for one good reason or another.
Well, look, we've got a job to do, and that's all there is to it. I mean, you know, we try to do our best, and we try to be friendly as possible.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I've been doing this job now for 17 years. Come June next year.
You're a very friendly man, though, aren't you?
I'll try to be.
Are you called a traffic warden?
I'll call it traffic attendant.
Supervisor. Formal shot of the vicar, Neil. Good afternoon, Neil.
Hello, Rex. How are you today?
We are fine. I hope you've been visiting.
Yes, just took the dog with us because we knew it was a house without any cats, so it would be all right. Say hello.
Very nice little chap,
It's time
isn't
for his supper, actually.
What do you feed him on?
Meat.
Dog.
Yes, out of a tin. Bye-bye. Bye.
I just need a couple of bits, Rex.
Margaret Waters helps herself to some of my ivy before maintaining the flower arrangements in the abbey and around the font under the great west window. Miriam and Murray look after the abbey gift stall. Here in the south transept we find the resting place of Earl Mountbatten of Burma. The Romsey Choral Society arrived to perform for a wedding. After such a wet start in the year, there followed a period of almost summer heat. And our River Test is certainly the place to cool off. Flowers have appeared in abundance and our gardens look beautiful at this period. And Jackie Findle of number 4 has opened her lovely little cottage garden to us.
But no, these aren't.
It's been non-stop here all
This
day.
afternoon it's been alright, but this.
Hello there.
Yes, yes. It's the time of year actually. Niobe. Yeah. Niobe come out in different colours. They do do it. Sometimes I notice that you've got about 5 years and there's always a very pale red. And what's the spoil? This is a new water.